And we are live. Welcome, everybody, to episode number 16. Man, I can't believe it's episode 16 already. Time is flying by. Tonight, we are going to focus on, we're going to start off with our season recap, so to speak, of the spring-summer activity season. Then we'll work our way into the upcoming fall and winter activity season, which starts next month in September, and a few other things. A little looser tonight on the format. We had a very busy week and weekend, so we're just going to ease our way in. So first off, let's do a little bit of a Florida sit rep here real quick. So I think everyone's been watching for Hurricane Aaron, and I think it's safe to say that it is curved enough that it's not going to cause any impact to us. From what I was seeing online, though, that's a pretty massive storm in size in the area of coverage. I know they were
obvious reasons, but
so I did see that they were doing some coastal evacuations in North Carolina. I don't know how far in or how their zone levels are compared to Florida. We have what, A, B, C, and D? Is it four levels? But hopefully it just. What was that?
I said that sounds right.
Yeah. So I think they're expecting some wind turbulence and some storm surge and stuff like that because they're catching some of the outer edges, but that remains to be determined. Hopefully it just skirts the coast and then just goes on by maybe to go to Canada or just back out in the Atlantic. That would be great. Now, I know there's another storm or potential storm coming up behind it, and I think Dennis Phillips, he's our local guy for weather reporting, and he was saying they were already showing signs that it might even curve sooner than Aaron, but it's still out. I'm estimating that storm would probably hit. Oh man, I had it in my calendar. I have to go grab it later. But I guess the one they're really concerned about is the one behind. That one that's behind Aaron. I guess it's dipping a little south right now, but everything is up in the air. So September is really our prime time when it comes to hurricanes and into the middle of October. So it remains to be seen what's going to happen. And I think when they go back to back, we have a double-edged sword because people start getting nervous. We had the back-to-back last year with Helene and then Milton. Now, we've had multiples before. I think 2004 was the big season. That's when we had Charlie and, there's a bunch of other ones. I have to pull up that image when you guys are chatting. So we're going to keep an eye on that. I'm hoping people are taking the opportunity to sit there and stock up on your cases of water, top off your food, get that extra stuff in your freezers, get those batteries or those solar generators, or get that extra gas or propane for your generator. Hopefully everybody's tested their generators. Hopefully don't wait to the last minute when everyone's just buying everything and there ain't nothing left. All right, let's see here.
Take advantage of the new tax breaks.
Yes, exactly. That
reminds me of my wife. She had sent me out for water. We had water over at the house, but she wanted me to just get a little bit more. And we always have our different barometers for how serious a hurricane is. And you can see the apocalyptic storms are when somebody finally buys some of that Dasani water. The rule at our house is death before Dasani. So that's where all the life straws come in and everything. But I remember the last year, because we've had so many people move in from out of town, they're transplants. They don't know that Zephyr Hills is the only water that you drink in Florida if you're buying it by the case or the bottle. So the Dasani was the first thing that got bought out. I was like, oh man, this is going to be rough if we actually get hit, in my little sleepy southern town.
some people might think, oh, it's just water. It doesn't matter. It does. Dasani tastes like garbage. I mean, no doubt. But then, even like if you're getting like Members Mark from Sam's,
Yeah.
I was in Sam's last week, and I was getting 10 cases. I like to keep a 10 case level at my house. We drink a lot of bottled water, so and they had the Sam stuff, the Members Mark, in the aisle on their pallets.
Mm-hmm.
And that thing was almost empty. People were digging through it. Now it's cheaper, and sometimes they change. I don't know what size bottles Members Mark is using. But there's always some kind of marketing promo. Whether it's convenience store or Sam's and what have you. Look, I guess if you're thirsty and you have no water, that's great. Okay, but if I'm going to be proactive, I'm buying Zephyr Hills. There ain't no getting way around that. I don't even drink tap water. The only time tap water even comes near my body is if I'm like brushing my teeth, basically. So to rinse out. That's about it. All right. So I'm going to put up here real quick. Image file. All right. 2004. All right. Can you guys see that map?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is in 2004. I was living in Florida at the time. I looked at hurricanes differently back then. I think it really wasn't in my on my radar per se. But that was a crazy year because you had Charlie coming up from the south over here on the west side, went right up the center. And then you had Janine and Francis. And basically, Central Florida, what is that, south to Polk? I mean, it got hammered. Do you guys remember? Oh, shoot, was Brendan, 5 years old back then?
I was 8. I do
8?
remember it.
So from the 8-year-old perspective, Brendan, what was that hurricane season like? Do you even recall?
It was the only time we ever left our house. So we lived in a house built in the 30s, stick frame house. And we went to my grandparents' house, which was a block home. I didn't understand the significance at the time, but looking back, I now realize why we went there. And I just remember that being odd because we had never left before and we had never left after. And that was just something that was, something that stood out.
Yeah.
I remember we had quite a bit of flooding where I grew up at, but not a whole heck of a lot after that.
Yeah.
Well, there's one hurricane that's not even mentioned on here, which is Ivan, that also hit over there in 2004. We had 4 hurricanes make landfall that year. And I remember not having to go to school for like a month. It was friggin' great.
Yeah.
I loved that. It saved me from having to skip, which I was, treating like a national sport at the time. But, I think there was I just looked up an article because I was curious. So we had 4 hurricanes in 6 weeks that hit. And that's probably the most active hurricane season generally. Some of us that remember like Hurricane Andrew going back in the, early 90s.
Yeah.
That was probably one of the more damaging ones. Charlie, I remember going to visit a martial arts instructor that I had over in St. Cloud, Florida, and, driving east along I-4 and seeing all the signs that had just been laid down because the wind had caught them. So you'd see steel I-beams ripped out of concrete block that's all solid cell poured. And it was just crazy. But I felt like I was in an apocalyptic wasteland.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at to get an image of that because I could have sworn it was 4 that year, and
Yeah,
so Ivan must be the 4th one. I'm trying to find a good image of it. That might have that might have skirted us on the edge. For let's see here.
So I just put up in the chat a link to a NOAA article, and we actually had 15 named storms that year.
Wow.
4 that made landfall are Gene, Francis, Charlie, and Ivan.
Is Ivan the one that did kind of like a loop-de-loo?
Yeah, you can see the pictures up there on it. Like it seemed to make it out in the Gulf, but I mean, they're hurricanes. They're like hand grenades. They're not. You don't have to be precision with them. You can still get messed up by the outer bands and get lashed pretty hard.
Yeah, it won't let me save that image. But one of the reasons I brought up, well, let's see. So Pablo, what were you here then?
No, I was living in Ohio in 2004.
Okay. Yeah. And the reason I bring up the back-to-backs is because obviously we experienced it last year with Helene, then Milton. And, one good thing about having them so close is that the state's resources were already up and running. So we hadn't even had an opportunity to even scale down on what we were doing. We weren't even done recovering from Helene per se, especially debris wise. And then Milton came in, which I got to give credit to Governor DeSantis and Florida Department of Emergency Management. Man, they cleaned up so much stuff in such a short amount of time. It was amazing to help, mitigate more damage from debris from the surging and stuff like that. So we got to give credit.
Electric like relief caravans staged. There's something like 4,000 people that were staged in neighboring states with trucks and everything like that. I mean, you study a little bit of logistics and you realize how phenomenal that effort was.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody's like, oh, well, they didn't do this well. Dude, like, this state should have been flat.
Yeah.
And we've got power on in a lot of areas within 24 to 72 hours,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There was a massive staging area near where I live. There was some open land near, there's like a hotel over there. And then there's like this co-location place where people can go and rent an office or a conference room or whatever. And man, there was so many trucks. Dudes were sleeping on the ground. And I mean, obviously there was so many of those throughout Florida. But it was something interesting to see, because I mean, we worry about our power going out or house getting flooded and stuff, and those are important. But just think about all those linemen and guys that come down from other states. I mean, they're just in the elements for weeks on end.
Yeah.
And then, the people like at Grindstone, those guys were deploying. Those guys are sleeping in tents, in their vehicles or under their vehicles or what have you. All right. So, interesting thing. Last year after Milton, I went and I was helping people. The next morning, boom. And people that did not prepare. All right. And I have to say that it was, I kind of, I wouldn't say it's my community outreach. Let's just call it that way. So out of the 4 people that I helped with community outreach, obviously one was my ex-mother-in-law. She passed away just after the storm. So there was no way for her to prepare anymore, obviously. But one of my former PTA colleagues, she just texted me last night saying, hey, we're seeing these back-to-back storms. We want to get prepared. I gave her all the list, and I gave her a list of all the stuff that she mentioned the things that I gave her, and I gave her the Amazon links to those things so they can purchase them for her home and for her parents. So I felt validated, for there. I had another coworker that I helped last year, and probably within a month or so after Milton. Oh, let's get Brendan back in here. All right, you back, B?
Yeah. Sorry about that.
So that coworker, they went and bought some stuff right after the storm, and then I helped out one other couple that I didn't know directly, but they were friends of people that come to our events, and I'm hoping that they sat there and did some preparedness. Now, the reason I bring this up is that there's so many people we call the normies out there that don't prepare. You can't fault them for that in the society that we have per se. But if you go and help them and then they still don't prepare for the next season, then it's like, come on, man. And you know better this time. So it was kind of good to hear that these people were, making some effort to do some things. Now, have any of you guys that you've helped out in your outreach, whatever form it is, have you seen them make changes to do something?
Yeah. So I think I mentioned my friend Jason. His wife was pregnant at the time, and she had a delicate pregnancy, high risk. And he had a hard time finding gas after the storm. And my electric power bank generator, I couldn't charge it fast enough because it was really cloudy after the storm. So we exchanged. Basically, I gave him some of my spare gas, and they let me come to the house and charge my generator because they got
Awesome.
power back way faster than I did. But he now has two jugs of gas, and he was sending me pictures, asking me questions because he got a different brand than the one I had, and the spout is really weird and it was leaking. So he was actually testing it, make sure it actually worked fine. He had to make some changes and do a warranty thing because he was leaking when he was trying to pour the gas out. But at the very least, he has the gas for the car if he needs it again. And he's been gathering. I'm helping him with comms to be able to reach us if he needs help and when we don't have cell phones. But yeah, he's trying to add more and more, just little by little, chipping at it. Just now I have this, now I have this.
Yep.
So now he has a baby that he needs to take care of while the next storm comes. But he's always asking questions, even if he's not buying stuff. He's at least asking questions like, "Hey, what should I do here? What should I do there? What do you think about this?" So he's at least very curious and wants to know what he can do.
Yeah, that's great. And to me, that would make me happy, have people that, important to me and, trying to gain the knowledge. So if you can get some knowledge, great. Get some skills, even better. If you can throw some gear to go along with all that, that's even better too. But as long as they're doing something, trying to move forward, makes it a lot easier to help them with a lot less resources from our own stashes. So that's good.
The other thing he did, he got a chest freezer to put in the garage, and he's been packing it with milk, butter, meat, chicken, fish, like whatever he can. He's just stacking that thing up in case he needs food during the next storm.
Yeah, kids will motivate you like nothing else. That was really my initial foray into preparedness. Is when I had 3 kids under 3. Man, that's a lot of diapers and formula and baby food and stuff like that. Now, what about you? What about you, Aaron? Any of your outreach experiences with the hurricanes come back to bear some fruit?
Yeah, I've had several people over the years that don't have food, don't have water, don't have a way to cook anything if they did have it. So I would make up, and I think I've talked about it on previous episodes. I would make up little footballs when I lived in a more residential area where I had normal residential neighbors. But I would give them, baby wipes and small toothbrush, toothpaste, little things like even having some smokes for a guy that, it just ran out because he hasn't been able to get any for a couple of days. it sounds stupid and it doesn't sound like very important, but just the little things of, hey, if I give you these baby wipes and I tell you about, what we used to call the field bath or a couple of other names that I won't say on the podcast, like, and your wife doesn't have to smell her armpits for the first time in 4 days, that's going to completely change the morale of your house.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Or, like bring little treats for their kids. And a lot of those guys, I've kind of done it with the training stuff that I do. So I make sure there's a pipeline to continue with that. And, we have before every hurricane, we have a phone call list that I do. So it's, where are you at? What are you doing? What's your plan? What would change your plan? Who's with you? And do you need anything that I can do for you? And 6 questions. It takes, Southern small talk. It takes a little bit to get through the conversation sometimes, especially if you got to call 10 or 15 people in a night. But just those little calls, like, that's changed several of the people that I've talked to become more self-reliant. And like, probably the biggest, I don't know, validation or, warm, fuzzy feeling that I got off of that was finding out that one of the guys was doing them for somebody else. Like, he had set up his own little family and started doing the calls and telling them, like, hey, you need to have this much food and this much water. So it's like, awesome, dude. Like, I'm only one guy. I can only help so many people, but it's great to know it's spreading a little bit.
Yeah. What about you, Brendan?
Most of the people I know and associate with are already preppers, so not a whole heck of a lot in that realm. And then usually, if there's been a bad storm, I'm off doing the grindstone stuff, so I don't really get to interact with those people long term. So I don't know. I would assume that at least a handful of them are going to start leaning toward preparedness. There's been a couple of cases outside of storms, just generalities, life stuff happens where I was able to help somebody out with, extra food. I'm known as my neighborhood's clinic. Like, whenever anyone gets hurt, they come to me for gauze, tape, gloves, disinfectant, things of that nature. And I have noticed less people getting a hold of me for stuff like that, and then talking to them, later, seeing somebody with their hand wrapped up or something. It's like, oh, what happened? It's like, well, the last time you wrapped me up last year, I figured it was a good idea to put, first aid kit in the truck, and now I have my stuff. So seeing stuff like that, but less so storm related.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Let's see here. All right. So we could segue over to talking about our spring and summer activity season now that it's over. So we concluded the season this past Sunday, and with wilderness skills and what's called communications. I thought it was a pretty good activity. We had more of the kids and the wives and the spouses out in the activity. Brendan's wife leading the way on the kids, and everyone was out in the woods, for a while. So that was cool. And I know I learned a lot. I'm sure everybody else did too. Brendan was demonstrating a quick 24-hour shelter and a 72-hour shelter. One was a little bit more camouflage than the other, so it was pretty neat. I think there was some great questions everyone was asking, and Brendan was a great resource. Thank you for providing that on Sunday. We had some fellas coming up from the Spring Hill Amateur Radio Club, and they gave us a GMRS demonstration on the technology and the different types of radios and about using a repeater. And I brought out around 17 radios programmed for the repeater. And so people were able to go out in the property and, practice connecting to a repeater and stuff like that. So that was a lot of fun. Those guys were great with information. So look forward to working with them again. It was a good segue or jumping off point for the communication project that me and Pablo are working on. So we're hoping to bring as many people as possible into the GMRS world at the very least. If you're already in GMRS, then we'll try to bring you into ham. And if you're already just the regular ham, like a tech, bring you to general, and then maybe even get some people involved in HF. But the more layers of communication, different ways to do it is better, especially during emergency times like the hurricanes. You get clusters of people. If you can talk with your neighbors or, other people in your network by whatever means, Meshtastic or GMRS, ham, whatever the case may be, it helps everyone communicate, getting their status, and providing some assistance. So if you need help and the cell towers are down, and if you're able to get a hold of somebody, either directly or through a relay of a couple other people, then you might be able to get some help from your network. So it's something definitely worth, investing time and treasure into. Let's see. Brendan, what do you think about the activity?
I really enjoyed it. I was super proud of the kids. So we did a scavenger hunt for the kids. I had thrown together a little list, find edible plant, find a medicinal plant, find a water source, things like that. Threw together a list of about 10 things. And I fully expect, because we had a range of from 4 years old to 15.
Yep.
So I half expected them to take the majority of the day. I think they were done in like an hour and a half. And my wife said that like they were after it, like they were excited. They were quick to run through. One of the things that I added in on some of the like more opinion based things. So like one of the options was, or one of the things to find was a reasonable shelter location. So on situations like that, they had to justify why it was a reasonable shelter, or justify, why they would pick this one medicinal plant over another, or this one edible over another, and so on and so forth. And my wife said that all the kids were like, they had logic behind it. They were quick to find it. I was really proud of the kids for that. That was awesome.
Yeah, same here.
All of our events these last couple months have been great. One of the things that I've really enjoyed is the people who have come in this last year. Not that we've ever had bad people. We've always had a good bunch of people, but it seems this last year we've gotten kind of a plethora of some very knowledgeable, very interesting characters. Aaron being one of them. Sam and his people, we sat down and talked for at least a couple hours on Sunday, and I'm super excited I'm supposed to go up and see their property and help do some things with them, and they're going to come help do some things at my place, and I'm really excited about building that relationship. We've just been having some outstanding folks come the last couple months.
Oh yeah. Well, one of the biggest connections, I agree with you, has been Sam and his crew, and they do some really cool stuff. I mean, one thing I was chatting with them, and I think Devore at one time, they do what's called the perma blitz, where whoever, say someone has a property like yourself, and you want to do X amount of things, like plant these things, plant these trees, these brushes, whatever, want to set up these raised beds or whatever the case may be. And you get all the materials and everything, and then they get volunteers. People come in, and boom, they just like knock it all out.
That's awesome. I used to do something similar with a group of guys, not just on the permaculture gardening aspect, but like we would call it fortifying a property, So we would set up, get in that amount of volunteers, figure out how much it's going to cost, and we'd go, put in a hand pump well, make water filters like the DIY Berkey water filters, put up a year's worth of food, put up a radio tower, and we would get one property set up to where it could house people if need be. But add that food and water so it doesn't, add a burden to those living on the property. And we did a couple of those spread throughout Florida, kind of in a centralized location that household could take in 3 or 4 other households that are in proximity to them.
Mm-hmm.
I love that idea. But that's the whole reason behind doing this stuff. It's like if I wanted to just like shut my gates and wall off from the world, I could do that now.
Yeah.
The point of getting out, meeting people, and forming community is so you have that in hard times as well as good times. It's nice that, yes, I know I have a bunch of people with a bunch of cool skills that I could call if shit goes down tomorrow. I'm sorry, stuff goes down tomorrow. That being said, Aaron's coming to my house tomorrow. Just because I want him here on Doomsday doesn't mean I want him here on Tuesday. It's like you got to do life with your people. How many times have you and I, Dom, sat at a Portillo's or some other restaurant and, it's only going to be an hour meetup. And next thing you know, they're trying to push us out the door because we've been there for 5.5 hours just talking,
Yeah. And the time flies by.
Yeah.
Because, the topics are interesting, but it's the camaraderie.
Yeah.
I
mean, I don't think we've had a single podcast or live stream that we didn't hang out in the green room after for 2 hours, continuing on. Not just because we don't want to show people that. It's just we all mesh together so well that we continue our conversations.
Oh, yeah. And to me, that's like the number one thing. Everything else is, it's gravy, because that camaraderie, those friendships, those relationships are what's going to make the difference in an emergency, okay, for people to come and help each other, okay? Doesn't matter who's got what in a stockpile or, what skills they have, is if we don't value each other in that way, then we're going to find an excuse not to come, So, Aaron, you've been to several of the events. What are some of the highlights of some of the events that really meant something for you?
I enjoyed the focus on skill over gear. For me, I've usually had to leave at the halfway mark because I have a wife and a child who, for whatever reason, want me around. But I've enjoyed seeing people get to share their skills. Getting to see that solar generator build, it's awesome because it's not something that I have. It's not something that I've done before. It's something that I'm aware of. And just like, most preppers, I've researched a ton of stuff that I haven't actually put into practice yet. It's the list of projects for future me just keeps on growing. But, that I also like the disagreements that I see for a lot of that. If somebody says, hey, I have this, solar generator, I put it together this way. And somebody's like, oh, those batteries suck. And here's why. Like, that's where it's really interesting to me. It's like, oh, you've got a whole different design and thought process. And, I'm going through that now with the comms stuff and radios. Like, comms is not my bag. I mean, that is not my focus, but, getting next to you guys and like some of my other friends and kind of pushing towards the comms, like, I looked up, I bought the Balfunks that I have like 8 or 9 years ago, probably. And I told everybody I was going to get my ham license that year. So I have a testing date set up in October of this year. But it's like I tell my wife sometimes, she's like, you told me you would do this next week. And I was like, yeah, and you need to stop reminding me every 6 months. Don't nag.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I have to say, one of the things that I has been impressed with you in particular is that, you come out to our events, you're doing stuff with the podcast, you're out doing things with the Polk County group, as well. So, you got your hands on a lot of different pots and stuff like that. And so you're a great contributor in so many different ways. So when you leave halfway from an event or you can't make it, I'm like, no problem, nothing but grace. I mean, you're doing all kinds of different things. The same thing with Brendan and with Pablo. I mean, I spend so much time with you guys, whether it's virtually or in person, or in a chat. It's like, man, it's pretty incredible. And I say that because I want people out there in the world to understand how we all value each other. Okay. And we do it through interacting with similar interests, and we all have strengths and weaknesses, and we don't sit there and like, well, since I'm not already an expert on it, because we see a lot of egos in the preparedness space, then I'm not going to bother with it. You got to be okay to let go and let someone else take the lead on something. I didn't have to learn it, but I had to understand that very quickly when I started hosting activities, and being an organizer to bring people together. You got to learn how to delegate. You got to learn how to lean on people that are subject matter experts. And it's okay that I don't know as much as them, or I don't shoot as well as them, or know, all these, I have as much gear as them.
Well, to touch on that too, like different people have different experiences, right? So, like Aaron was saying, it's like, oh, I don't use those batteries because I use these batteries and got this experience. You might not have had that negative experience, but here's, my experience, blah, blah, blah. During one of my setups this last Sunday, I had set up a stealth camp, was one of my things. I did a traditional camp. I'm lost in the woods and I want to be found. Here's a bunch of high vis stuff. We went over like international signal codes for airplanes, like the rule of threes and stuff, like, 3 fires, 3 triangles, 3 logs in a triangle, things like that. Like that airplane pilots are taught, hey, if you see this, report that, send help there. But one of the things I did was I did my stealth camp. Different people have different experiences. I don't get affected by poison ivy, poison oak, poison sumac, things of that nature. So it's not something I look for. Sam points out, it's like, hey, you built your stealth camp on a giant vine of poison ivy. And he wouldn't get close to it. And I was like, oh, for me, it doesn't matter, but that would be a huge factor for somebody, something that just it doesn't occur to me because it's not a problem for me, but it's that different experience. That would definitely be something you'd want to look for if you were have adverse reactions to poison ivy, or be able to identify that plant. If you're ripping vines off to cover your shelter for a stealth camp, probably don't want to cover your shelter in poison ivy or poison sumac or poison oak or Virginia creeper, things like that. I'm blown away how many people, because Virginia creeper is all over Florida, and not everybody has a reaction to it. It's a relatively small number of people have a reaction to it, but it is a toxic plant, and most people can't even identify it, but it's that different experiences with different people,
Yeah, and it gives credence to why you should have some gloves in your bag. Dealing with the plants, the prickly stuff, the poisonous stuff, the itchy stuff, just even with the branches and twigs and stuff. There's just all kinds. How many times I've gone in the woods and those little, they look like little spiky tumbleweed type things. They end up being all over your shoelaces. It's like, man.
Little sand spurs, yeah.
I've had a good. I wear shorts everywhere. Born and raised in Florida, shorts are the only way to go. Tramping through the woods all Sunday. I found a blackberry patch, which didn't bother me at the time. Just stomp through it, whatever. These last couple days, my legs are tore up from that blackberry patch.
Oh gosh. Oh, so Pablo, reflecting on the events we've had, this season, which ones have you enjoyed, or you want to speak about?
No, it's very similar to Aaron. There's a more focus on skills rather than in gear. If anything, I tend to focus on what not to get. I'm not telling you what to get. I'll tell you what not to get, and it's specifically because I've had an experience with it and I didn't like it and got rid of it. It didn't do what I was expecting it to do, or maybe my expectations were too high, but it still didn't really fit what I wanted. So that's most of my focus, just what not to get. But even if I'm not interested in something, like seeing the creativity that people have to making stuff that's actually useful, it's like, oh yeah, I never thought about that. That's actually kind of cool. You brought it, you made it, gave us a little sample so we could try it. You're not trying to sell it to me. You're just telling me, hey, this is what I did. This is what it's used for. That's cool.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, didn't think about that. And again, I'm not always like into it, but like I respect the creativity that and the dedication that they had to come up with this stuff.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, for me, obviously I organize all these activities and I enjoy all of them. I tend not to be able to participate at the same level as everybody else, but that's okay. That's just part of the job. But I know everybody that's presenting. So if it's really something that I feel I want to dig deeper, I just, find alternative times and days to interact with them on a one-on-one basis and get the experience myself. But one of the things I really liked about this season is that we were able to connect with Sam and his people, and not only brought in a different set of people to interact with us, whether it's as participants, but as contributors, and to have another location to go and do things at. We're lucky. We have access to the ranch, and so that's where we have all our big events. All our smaller stuff is usually at a Portillo's or at a park or something like that. But it can make a difference when you have access to different places and stuff, and you see how they do things differently. So if you guys ever have the opportunity to go to Cindy's property, man, it is so cool. I saw some stuff on there that I haven't seen at any other properties my whole time doing preparedness. So, and then the people that are in their group that they came out to present, they were great, very knowledgeable. Everyone's friendly. So, I think that was pretty good. I look forward to us being able to do more stuff like that in the next season, just doing a different set of activities, the last thing I'll say about the spring, summer, some people don't like to do it during those months because it's too hot outside, whatever. But if you're not doing something, you're not moving forward. You're falling behind. You're spinning wheels. We need to get more comfortable in doing things, at least just being outside. So there's a difference between us hanging out at a property and being under a pavilion, even though it's open air, to not being in the direct sunlight. Okay. And doing some stuff. We live in Florida. We should be able to tolerate the heat to a certain extent, especially if we're not going to have any power, if it's a hurricane or something. So going to hike during the summer, that's a little bit, different, but it's manageable. Do it early in the morning. Pick trails that are, mostly undercover, because the big difference in hiking is if you're in the direct sunlight. If you're in the direct sunlight, it's just going to suck everything out of you. So instead of making excuses or finding reasons to not do things, find ways that you can do something. So doing a 3 or 4 mile hike under some shaded trees on a well-maintained trail, okay, cool. Doesn't mean you got to go out and do an 8 mile where it's all direct sunlight on multiple elevations. You don't have to do that during the summer. One thing I really wish I got to do this summer, let me rephrase that. I wish there was one thing I wish I was able to make happen, and I did not. I failed on that. Was testing out using a 5,000 BTU portable window unit AC in the tent. So maybe next season, but hopefully I'll be able to do that in the fall. It's still hot enough. Some people are like, well, if you need air conditioning, why you don't need to be going to camping? Well, it's like, huh?
Glamping.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, for me personally, in the summer, I have a lot of free time since I'm off for the summer that I can go do things with my kids. So my hope was that I was going to be able to go find a couple of these national forests or state parks that have watering holes that you can go swimming, be it near the beach or a lake. So I'm like, well, if we're going to go swimming all day and be outside anyways, no big deal. It's really about at night, when you're trying to sleep that you're cool. And if you're picking a place that has shore power, because a lot of times I'll camp where there's like RV spots, then boom, man, just put a little window AC in there so you guys can sleep comfortably.
We just usually bring a box fan in the Jackery.
Yeah. Well, and that works. But if I can go and be at 70 degrees, I'm going to go at 70 degrees. Well, it's a good point that Brendan makes, because a lot of people share that same opinion, but remember too, that Brendan's grown up in the woods, that's his lifestyle and that works for him. And I mean, when I was in the Marines, I had to do stuff like that, and that's fine. But, getting my 3 daughters to go out and do that and want to have, maintain it, that's a little bit more challenging. But you know what? Everyone's got to have their own different way of doing it. So, and at the very least, it's a fun experiment. All right. All right. Now we'll segue into what's on deck for our fall and winter activities. Okay. So I mentioned earlier, me and Pablo are working on the communications project. And basically what we're doing is we're coming up with protocols and gear recommendation and combinations to get people up on GMRS, get them up on ham, connecting to repeaters and what have you. Since so many of us are just spread out geographically, there's really no one solution that will interconnect all of us. So we're working on trying to connect small groups of us within the network at the very least, and then try to use other stuff like big ham repeaters or GMRS repeaters to go a little bit farther and see what we can do. It's a fun and interesting thing to try to figure out. And just like anything else, when you're dealing with people, sometimes it's like herding cats. So just what I recommend to people that want to try something similar, just got to have a lot of patience, give people some grace. You can give them the information, okay? But you can't do it all for them. In the end, they got to sit there and make some effort as well, to get over those humps, those barriers. Let's see. Also, starting next month, we'll kick into our hiking and rucking series. I'm looking forward to that. And probably start out with some under 4 mile hikes, so you could have the littles and some of the older people that really can't hike that far. It's still a little bit warm out there, but we got to jumpstart, get things going. Also provides an opportunity to do things in, not so ideal conditions. I mean, you have the heat, but also we're still going to have a lot of rain. We're going to be in hurricane season. So short of lightning, in our vicinity, then we should be able to still hike right through.
One of the things I was planning that hike over at Hillsborough River State Park, and I'm seriously considering moving the date on it, because about 3/4 of their trails are currently closed because of flooding. So, it would be interesting to try that out, but I don't think you want to take a bunch of people that this is their first hike that they've done in a while out into submerged Florida and figure out how to play whack-a-mole with gators and
Oh
Hawk
yeah,
is,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and that's a great point because places are still reeling and repairing from Helene and Milton at this point. And it sounds crazy, but um, even some of the repairs, especially along the coastline, they're doing repairs, and then some weather comes in, and boom, it's like washing out sand that they've restored and what have you. Um, there's one place out in Pinellas near East Lake. What is the name of it? Brooker Creek. I've yet to still hike the whole 4 mile trail there. They have a trail spine where you can go up and you can do, say, a 1 mile loop or 2 mile, 3 mile, 4 mile. It's not exact, but and every time I've tried to go there, I can only go partially up because it's flooded out. And I was not, some of the times I was with my kids and they weren't going to go through that. And if I attempt it again, I'll probably try to get some muck boots to bring with me. So if I come into some spots, maybe I'll just throw the muck boots on and then see how far that'll get me. I really don't want to go trudging through the swamp, basically. So it's not like it's, oh, you're afraid of a puddle or something. No, it's just, you get to those longer distances and your feet are all wet. You're just increasing the chances of getting blisters and stuff like that. But that's one thing that I've yet to be able to complete. I can't even imagine what some of these other trails are like. So and over where you're talking, that's off of Morse Bridge, right, Aaron?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it must be a lot of low-lying area over there. Plus, it's got to be. Wait, is that part of the lower Hillsborough Rivers?
Yeah.
Those state park ecosystem over there?
Yeah, I think that's what it's considered. But I mean, every hurricane that we've had, that area has pretty much flooded out. Like Morris Bridge is usually, I've seen it under 3 to 4 feet of water. When I was actually trying to get to a buddy of mine who lives off of Morris Bridge, after I think it was Milton, like I had to reroute 4 times to figure out how to get past the state troopers blocks and the impassable roads that they weren't blocked by state troopers, but they might as well have been.
Yeah.
So that's it's interesting to know the area that you're in and be able to see it through multiple storms. But just the heat seems to be the biggest thing that's a barrier for people doing anything outside in Florida. Like that's the first thing that I always do is, oh, it's going to be too hot. I'm like, no. Like, you've got to deal with it in Florida.
Yeah, you just change your activities. Before I go on, Brendan or Pablo, you guys got any comments about the comms project or the hiking and rucking?
I'm excited to do more stuff with comms. I realized maybe a year or two ago, I'm super deficient with comms. Like, put me in the middle of the woods with a sharp stick, and I'm good. I will survive. I can make a fire. I can identify edibles. I can hunt, blah, 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 all that stuff. I am so technologically deficient. I am technologically illiterate. So I started diving into CB and GMRS a little bit beginning of last year. Quickly realized CB in my area isn't entirely viable. There's like 3 or 4 channels that have been taken over by, let's call it a pirate radio station. From the sounds of it, it's Cuban, but it could be Mexican too. They're just playing, Spanish radio all day long. Which, I mean, I'm right next to a migrant community in an area that has a bunch of Cuban expats, so it makes sense. And there's just not a whole lot of people on CB. I got it because it was a quick, easy, cheap barrier to entry. But really, really got convinced when I went up to East Tennessee after Helene and seeing what those guys did up there between ham, the several different types of ham, and the GMRS. Those guys might as well have been wizards to me.
Mm-hmm.
And they were organizing us across 3 different counties in each direction. And I was, okay, no, this is not only is this a cool thing to have, it is borderline necessary, especially if you want to do anything, past a mile of your location.
Yeah.
So that really kind of gave me the bug to dive deeper into it. And I've been trying. I recently got a 40-watt GMRS radio that I showed you come in the mail Saturday. So I've yet to hook that up just because I've been running sun up to sundown. I am dog tired right now.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna hook that up, and I want to see who all in our group I can hit. I know the closer people I should be able to hit just fine, but the radio advertises 40 miles, but I know with radios it's like it'll hit somewhere between half a mile and 3,000 miles, depending on conditions. So, it advertises 40. I saw a guy online said he reached a repeater 69 mile away from his place. The furthest person from me that I care to hit, like want to hit, is just shy of 60 miles. I don't think I'll be able to hit him on my car setup, but when I hook up I have a radio tower that I have yet to put up. I'm going to get that with a 16-foot antenna on top of it, and hopefully I might be able to reach him then. But if I can reach Devo at the ranch,
Mm-hmm.
the ranch is just shy of 30 miles from me as a crow flies, I think. It's like 27, 28 mile. So if I could reach her, that would be awesome.
That'd be great.
Because
Yeah.
she's almost equal distance from the other person I want to hit. And then we could just do like a manual repeater setup. Hey, Devo, tell Derek I said XYZ,
Yep.
So, yeah, I'm real excited for the comms stuff.
Yeah. I think it's going to be really good. Pablo's been digging in pretty deep with a lot of the technical stuff and documentation. He's doing a great job. Pablo, you want to talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, so that was just an excuse for me to get some toys to play with. Because that's what I do every day.
Yeah.
But so I already had the ham radio set up. The GMRS, I improved it. I moved the radio that I had here to the car, and then I got a more powerful radio for the house. And then I recently got some Meshtastic radios, and I'm in the process of mapping my coverage. Basically, I went to my sister's house. Okay, it worked. I went to the Publix I go to. Yeah, it worked. And they went to another store further down. It's like, yeah, it worked. So I'm actually mapping how far I can send a message back to the house. Because that just relies on a whole bunch of different people that are just out there making the network, basically. The one I really would be really interesting to have is putting a Meshtastic radio on a drone. And see what you can do with that. There's a company that sells a package with the drone and the radio with a specific designed case that just attaches to the drone. Like that's the whole package. Here you go. But yeah, the idea is kind of to have a map of where all the members of the group are, what is closest to them, whether it's ham or GMRS, what are your capabilities, and kind of give them a suggestions like this is the most efficient thing for you. But then it's also kind of having the lessons of, okay, you have the radio, it works, now what? Like it's not like a cell phone where it's going to ping me, someone send me a message, and like, no, you actually have to actively listen. But if you're busy or you forgot, then it's kind of useless. So it's getting into that mentality of, yes, I actually have to keep it charged and actually turn it on and monitor at a specific time. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to talk to anybody. just getting some notes down so people are aware of, okay, this is what I'm getting into. This is what I need to do. This is how I can best use this if I actually need help. But it also provides information for news or local police and that kind of stuff. Even if your cell phone is cut off, you can get some basic information of what's going on around you. So yeah, if we're talking about getting together with Sam and helping them set the same thing up, and expand the community, basically, share that knowledge. And hopefully people will be into it and actually contribute to the network, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was mentioning earlier about, the camaraderie that we all, we grow and share together and stuff. And it's great when you're able to complement. So like back in the beginning, me and Brendan are the complete opposites. Okay. In so many different ways. Okay. But we complement each other in such great ways is that there's no egos. It's just, I know what Brendan's good at. He knows what I'm good at. And then we just work together and it just works, and, it's a similar thing with Pablo. Pablo's more of the technical engineer aspect of all this radio stuff. I'm more about collecting data, getting the people, bringing people in, but I know enough to understand what he's doing. And if I don't, I ask him, and then he schools me on it. We don't have to be doing the exact same thing. We just both need to be contributing and getting the task done, and, and with Aaron, like I never really thought I was going to be able to find someone else to fill in for Brendan when he had to deploy, for Grindstone. And I'm like, man, we just started this podcast and Brendan's over there saving the world. What am I going to do now? And I mean, literally, I had just met Aaron. I don't even know if I met you before Brendan left or as he was talking about doing it.
No, I think he was on like when he left.
Oh, he was already gone?
Yeah.
And, and this is where it's like me and Aaron and two other people, we met at a meetup, just one of the normal things that I do. And we all had some good conversations. And then those two guys left. And then me and Aaron were staying there for at least, another hour and a half?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, shooting the breeze. Just like me and Brendan would be somewhere and we talking for hours like it's nothing. So, and Aaron's a what? Huh?
It's Portillo. It's the power of that Italian beef and combo.
Yeah, that's right. We were at Portillo's.
Yeah,
that's right. Portillo's is magical, man. But one of the things that I noticed right away with Aaron was he has a lot of knowledge about a lot of different things. Now you could look at that in two different ways. Okay, you can sit there and say, well, this dude just thinks he knows everything. He's a know-it-all. Okay. And I think people would think that way if they have, their own chip on their own shoulder or they have self-esteem issues or whatever the case may be, and Aaron's a pretty beefy dude. Okay. compared to me. Okay. And I say this in the sense that preparedness is a very machoistic, genre in a lot of ways and a lot of things that we do. Okay. Who's got a bigger gun? Who's got a nicer gun? We got more doodads on it. I can shoot this or that or whatever. So there's always, some kind of piston contest going on, whether it's right there in front of you or in your own head, with a lot of people. Okay. I think we all do it a little bit, but there's some guys it's their whole character. And I didn't look at Aaron in that way. I was like, well, this dude knows a lot of stuff about a lot of different things. So I find that interesting. And then we were just chatting about all kinds of stuff, but we did have a lot of similarities in ideology when it came to organizing people. Okay. And doing groups because he has some background with that. And so do I. So we both had a lot of confidence, but we were both able to sit there and listen to the other person and not try to dominate the conversation. Okay. So again, we complement each other in that sense, you know, or have some similarities, he knows more combative stuff than me and, knife work and all this other stuff. I don't know any of that stuff. And,
Give yourself time, man.
yeah, I got a whole bunch of knives. I'm just a collector when it comes to knives.
Every prepper has a bunch of knives.
Yeah.
Like that kind of.
I sit there and look back and I'm like, why did I buy this? Oh, I was watching a video and this might work in the apocalypse, My
wife always hates it when I say, "See, there was a sale." All of a sudden, like 4 packages just showed up, and it was for a really good price, babe.
Yeah. Or I like Brendan's excuse. Is that another snake gun?
It worked for like 3 or 4 guns.
Oh man. All right. So another component of our new season coming up is going to be camping. So big group camping. We haven't done that in a couple years. Let's see. Yeah. Me and Brendan hadn't connected when we did the last big camping. That was with my original OG guys in the network when we first started during COVID.
Been, what, at least 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, it was. So the big camping was January of 2021, and that was a lot of fun. That was crazy. It was the coldest day of the year. First time I ever took my kids camping. But it was so awesome. There was so many like lessons learned there, community meals, everyone just helping each other out. So it gave me a lot of good ideas of how to model future ones, and so we're going to try to do at least 1, maybe 2 of those. I was speaking with Devora the other day about potentially doing kind of like a starter practice, big community camping up at the property, and then maybe do one other one at some campground somewhere sometime after that. If we can get 2 out of the fall, winter, I think that's good for the big group camping. But do you want to do some small group activities, which could be, specialized hikes, like going on some long hikes or rucks, some small group camping. I'm sure there's some guys that want to go do like Brendan, take a Bic lighter and a pocket knife and, a water bottle and water filter and go out in the woods for 3 days, eat off the land. That won't be me, but
well, we just did that. What was that? February or March? Me, a couple of my nephews, and my son went out on a canoe trip, and we made the decision we were only going to eat what we caught. Now, before anyone freaks out, I brought food for my 7-year-old. He chose to only eat what we catch, but I did bring food for him if need be. That being said, he caught more fish than any of us.
Yeah.
So he ate the best.
Yeah. Junior's a go-getter, man. I mean, I'd have more confidence going in the woods with Junior than a lot of adults.
Oh, we were laughing about it. So the guys who I brought with us, wow. One is my oldest boyfriend. He's 21. He's from England. He's from London proper. So been in the city his whole life, brand new to anything rural. A couple of my nephews and a couple of their friends. So the ranges, with the exception of my son and me, ranges somewhere in the realm of 19 to 23. And they were laughing that none of them knew how to make a fire. My son made the fire. My son caught most of the fish, and the only other person who caught fish decided to drop his ego because, of course, everybody knows the right way to fish. And it wasn't until Jazili stopped, sat back, and said, I'm going to watch Junior do exactly what he does. And then within 5 minutes, he caught 3 fish. You know? And so it was funny that on our ride back, our little canoe trip back, because we canoed up a day, camped out for a day, and canoed back a day. On the canoe trip back, Jazili's talking to me. He's like, it's hilarious to me that a 7-year-old is more man than the rest of us.
Mm-hmm. So true. But, that's one of the positives, or, great attributes of being able to grow up on a property where you're growing stuff, you're raising animals, you're in the woods doing the things, where most of us are all living in suburbia or we're urban dwellers. And, we can't stand being out of our air conditioning for that long, and
it was pretty cool when we went out. That was nice. And I hammock camp, so that a hammock's way better than a tent as far as for the cooling factor. It doesn't trap in all that hot air.
I bet. And it's probably pretty comfortable and stuff.
Yeah. And we were right on the side of a river too, so we had a half decent breeze going with us. It was nice. It was nice. Well, one of the things that I did with the boys, because they wanted to do kind of like a total experience. So we took it as this is after an event setup. We drank all our water, came out of the river, between life straws and filtering it by boiling.
Mm-hmm.
Only ate out of the river. And then we also posted guard posts in 8-hour shifts throughout the night. My son did not have to get up, but he got up with us and he wanted to stand guard with us. And it was cool. And, proud dad moment, right? So
yeah,
we had a thermal out there just to pass the time more than anything, just playing around with the thermal.
Yeah.
But it was cool to let him go through. He found a turkey, with the thermal. So watching them roost up into the trees and whatnot. Wish we were a little further away from civilization, because otherwise we would have had turkey for breakfast, but we weren't, so I didn't. Which I would never do, because poaching is wrong.
It's wrong. And you follow the law. So Pablo and Aaron, what do you guys think about the big group camping and the small group activities? Any thoughts on that? Any ideas for them?
Any excuse to get out into the woods for me it's a good idea. Like, I always come back so de-stressed after getting in the woods for a couple of days. The first day, I kind of miss that over-connectedness that everybody has these days with the cell phones and 15 different messaging apps, 6 different social media platforms. Mm-hmm. The second day, I don't really miss that stuff. And the third day, I'm like, nobody sent me a bill since I've been out here. If I just walk off into the Withlacoochee State Forest, like, most people stay on public lands and, on like 2% of the public lands. So, like, what's their real chances of finding me? But, yeah, the group campouts, like, I really love the hands-on training and skills, for that combatives block that we did, a couple meetings ago. That's always my passion, is getting out away from the research, because I think a lot of preppers get like paralysis by analysis, mm-hmm. where they just learn and learn and learn and learn and learn, and they never do. Mm-hmm. And it's like, dude, I'd rather screw up 4 or 5 times in a row and know now that, like, I know how to do this thing than think like, oh, according to my research, I watched this video from like Dirty Civilian on YouTube, and like, this should work, and then when you need it, it's not there. For you, or worse, for like someone you care about. So
that was a big thing. The first training I did with you, Aaron, going to one of your events, training something that I have done, or I've seen it done 1,000 times, and would do it myself in the mirror, so to speak. and then go to do a draw on you, and you're like, well, yeah, what happens when someone just does this? And next thing I know, he's in my face. He now has control of the weapon, and I'm like, I die. That's what happens, you know? It's like, so yeah, doing it, it's all right to mess up in practice, because then you learn, well, next time I know, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's so much of that skill set, like the wood stuff, bushcrafting. I've talked to so many people from preparedness over the years that are like, oh, I used to be a Army, Navy, Ranger, Delta, Ninja, SEAL, Jedi dude. They're like, yeah, how many years ago was that, bud? How many pounds ago was that?
Yeah.
Like, the last time that you missed a meal and it wasn't the end of the freaking world? Like, do you have, the ability to still function? Even little things which is what I'm really excited about for the hikes and the campouts, like moving as a group. Like, it's fun to just go out and be recreational, but then if we're like on a patrol or I'm trying to actually bug out on foot, hopefully not, but like that's worst case scenario for me. But like, what do? Do you all bunch up? That way nobody really has to work too hard to shoot all of you at once. Or do you string out? Like, how do you plan your routes and stuff? I think that those campouts are a great opportunity to start learning some of those skills.
Yeah.
And then you also learn, if you have a pace that you like, doing that in a group, you have now doubled your time. Doing that in a group with children, you have quadrupled your time.
So I will always walk with a sense of urgency. Like, I'm heading somewhere. I am going to do something. My wife is more of a lackadaisical walker at a more leisurely pace.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the arguments that we've had for the last 13 freaking years is, I hate your stupid sense of urgency. I was like, well, your short little legs need to keep up.
Yeah.
But I've had to come off some of that with asking her to come out to do this camp out stuff. And I was like, I'm already having to convince her to come out and do some of this stuff with me and the baby. So maybe I should slow down my pace a little bit. And like, my daughter's going to pick every freaking flower in the forest.
Yeah.
She's 3. It's appropriate,
You can ask Dom. My children, for some reason, they have an adverse reaction to trails.
Yeah.
They must run off into the bush.
Uh-huh.
And so trying to keep track of my son, who's currently trying to catch a black racer, as my 14-year-old finds a pig trail and says, I wonder if it's fresh. Let's go run down it. Why the 4-year-old is picking daisies, it can be a challenge.
Oh, yeah. What about you, Pablo? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I've mentioned before that the last time I went camping, it was just horrible experience for so many reasons. But I will give it another shot. So, like Brendan said, like, I've seen a bunch of videos on how to make a fire with sticks and give it air and make holes here, blah blah. But I've never actually done it. Like, I have a fire starter. I've never used that. I have a bushcraft knife. It's still in the bag. So yeah, I'll join apprehensively, but with an open mind, and then we'll see if I get back.
Well, you can't fire coffee, man. Like, once you get a little pep in your step, you'll be just fine.
Part of the fun of doing these group activities is that because everyone's at different levels, I think it's even better when people come in and they're novices. So the guys that do have the skills, they can, show the other people, and you get the hands-on and everything. And if you like helping other people, it just enhances the whole experience. I mean, what's the point of knowing all kinds of skills and having experience if you don't want to share it with everybody?
So that's a big conversation in my house, where I will try and show my wife or my children. My son, he's like me. He is convinced that whatever he doesn't know will kill him. So therefore he must learn everything. But my wife and like my older daughters are like, well, why do I need to know this? I have you. And I think a lot of people in group scenarios get that. It's like, well, I don't need to learn shooting because Aaron's head of security, or I don't need to learn the edible plants because we've got Bender running around the woods picking our edibles. What happens when I roll my ankle and I'm incapacitated, or Aaron falls down and cracks his head? It's like, hey, we all need this knowledge, and it's like, yes, should you have a subject matter expert? 100%. None of us have a group large enough to do specialized labor. Not yet, at least, We all need it.
Well, interesting add-on to that. We read all kinds of books, prepper fiction, and watch apocalypse movies and stuff like that. But it's hard for me to remember. I mean, they did a little bit in the Going Home series, but if you guys read the books of Black Autumn series, no, all right. Well, and there's that movie on it's called Homestead, and then it had the first 2 episodes. Well, there was a confrontation between, the head of security military guy and the Homestead guy, because the Homestead guy had all these like civilians that weren't military. And, we've been training and we've been to the range and blah, blah, blah. And the guy's like, I could take 3 of my guys or whatever, or 6 of my guys and take out your whole 20. And so they had like a little simulation paintball kind of thing. And he won. And so they came to an agreement where it's like, okay, well, we'll train and learn all this military stuff, but then you guys got to learn how to raise the animals and grow the food and harvest and stuff, which I agree with. Everyone should have multiple jobs. Everyone should have like a main job, if you're going to try to do any kind of community-based thing, but you need to have a second and third job because everybody's got to work in shifts. Someone gets sick. Someone gets hurt. Someone's got to go out on a special patrol or mission and someone's got to fill the gap. So we can't rest on our laurels and just have one skill and be good. We got to try to strive to have like 2 or 3, at least be functional in 2 or 3. If you're going to try to do any kind of community-based thing, which is the most likely way people will survive if you come together as a community. So.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that too, because like if you look historically at when specialized labor happens, it's typically because somebody thought that they didn't need to learn how to fight. So the people that did know how to fight told them what their new job would be and what their shift was.
Better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
So that's where you start getting things like taxes. That just usually starts out with, hey, I've got a big freaking club. And if you don't want me to park it between your eyebrows, you're going to give me, we'll call it 40%. I'm feeling generous today of your harvest. And, your daughter's also kind of cute. So why don't you, throw that over here? And you're like, but I'm a pacifist. Yeah. Awesome. Go do my gardening, monkey. So I say that not because I want to become a raider. I say that to encourage other people to get the skill set so that they don't end up, being like the third butt wiping assistant for some local warlord.
Yeah. Oh man. All right. Well, let's do some final. Well, does anyone have any kind of topic they want to bring up before we go to final thoughts?
No. Good.
All right. All right. So just a reminder, everybody, keep your eyes on the weather radars and top off, stock up, whatever you haven't already. Test out your gear. I know I keep emphasizing it, but people, they get too complacent and then they don't take care of business. I kind of, one last thing I want to talk about. So we had this big storm recently and the power went out in my house. And then when the power came back on, my bedroom did not come out with power. Everyone else had power now except for me. And my breaker was different than everyone else's breaker. It had like this, middle point. And I kept playing with it. Couldn't get it to work. Waiting for someone to come check it out. And then I was like, all right, well, let me take this opportunity to test some stuff out. Now, you guys know I'm into the solar stuff. I got all kinds of solar generators and batteries. And, I have this theory and idea of like, well, I want to be able to run my router and my, what you call it, Wi-Fi access point. So I put one of my small solar generators on that, plugged it into the wall. So if it goes out, we're not instantly going to lose that unless something happens on the street. So then I'm like, all right, how can I run my bedroom? So I wanted to run my TV, my Apple TV, my floor lamp. So I put a small little solar generator on there. Man, I could not keep that thing even to 50% using batteries. So I have 100 amp hour batteries, and I have a way that I could put them in there, and it could not replenish it fast enough to run all that stuff. So I was going bingo before I would even wake up in the morning over there. So if it was one thing about just having enough flow going in, I have a way to work around that. You can put things in series. It'll put out more than one battery, but there just wasn't enough power stored to run these things. Now, I wasn't going to get up in the middle of the night for this test to go and unplug things and minimize the draw, because I wanted to see where the fail points were. And I set up another one to run my, my laptop and my monitor and stuff like that. So when we're doing these and the power goes out in the middle of the storm, we're not going to lose, our broadcast capabilities. And then I had another one over by my bed. Now these are both Delta 2s. So I could just, plug in, my iPhone or, some of the radios that I have and stuff like that. So that was really challenging because I was using too much of my equipment, because my standard thing is have a Delta 2 on my fridge and freezer, have a Delta 2 up in my room running whatever I'm going to run. And then the other two got other positions. So I got to reformulate how I'm going to do things. And I need to be able to relay from, say one Delta 2 to another Delta 2 if I'm going to have it in here. Or I'm just going to have to scale back on stuff, And this is where it gets kind of a little tricky, where you lose power, but you still have, say, your cell phone. Well, you want to maintain that. My point being, all these devices take more power than we realize. And I mean, I love the Delta 2, but it only has 1,024 watts of power. And you're not going to get all of that power because there's going to be phantom draws from the BMS just running the machine. It's going to lose power. When it's converting power using AC outlets, it's going to use more than what it should because it's not DC to DC. DC to DC makes it cleaner and more efficient. If you're doing AC, it's kind of like, I don't know if it's stepping up or stepping it down. I think it's stepping it up. So I got to learn more to do more with less, and not have to be in a position where I need to get either more solar generators or more batteries. Because even if you buy more batteries, well, how are you going to charge them? I do have a generator that I could top them off. That means I got to buy more solar panels. And how many solar panels are you going to put in your backyard, even if you have the space for it? So I just wanted to share that because I had all this theory, like you were talking about earlier, Aaron. It's like knowledge, learn, theory, and then it's just doing. And I was doing, and it was not holding up to what I wanted to do. And more importantly, of course, you guys know I want to run a window AC in my house, at least at nighttime, from 6 to 8 hours based on the equipment that I have. So I could probably do that, but I got to make sure everything else, I might have to go really bare bones for it all, So I think it's important that we all sit there and really test all our systems while we can. And keep that in mind, because I think on next episode, we may bring that up in one of the segments. What are the systems we've theorized, and which ones have we tested, and what did we do to sit there and improve upon it? So with that said, everyone, have a great night. We'll see you guys next week. Please remember to like and subscribe. It makes a difference, so we can send you guys notifications when the live streams come out. And please give us some feedback. It's always welcome. All right. Thank you, everybody. You guys have a great night.